Welcome to episode 3 in our Women's Seasons and Cycles podcast. Today we are talking all about the seasons of matrescence. Enjoy!
Hey mama, I'm sending you wonderful pregnancy vibes. It's time for you to guide you through. Let's take some time for you. It's pregnancy with Physio Laura.
Hello mamas and welcome back to our third and final episode in this Women's Seasons and Cycles podcast with the incredible Nikki McCann. Today, yes, we have my sidekick Luca, but we are talking all about the seasons of matrescence. So this is actually a trademark term that Nikki has used because she has developed an incredible model about seasons of matrescence. So if you want to learn more, go and check her out on Instagram at Nikki McCann. She has got incredible teachings, offerings, programs. If you want to learn more, definitely go check it out. But today we're talking all about the seasons of matrescence specifically. So in episode 1 and 2, we've been talking about all the different seasons of life, seasons of menstrual cycles, seasons of nature, seasons of rest and busyness and the importance of rest. We've covered all of that. So if you haven't listened to those two, go and check them out. I feel like Luca being in the background today is such a reminder of the season of life I am right now. And the season of life I am in right now is that I have 3 kids under the age of 4. My youngest is currently 8 and a little bit months old, and I am a business owner. I run a podcast. I have a membership, and you've just got to do it. You know, there's a few balls to juggle. I don't like multitasking, so I don't often do this when she is awake, but that is just how it worked today. She is in the background. I'm here doing the podcast, and I'm still able to deliver what I need to do in both ways, and that's the season of life I'm in. One day, I'm going to be really lonely and sad at home while all my kids are away from me, and I know I'm going to miss these days. So I definitely don't wish them away. I embrace them for what they are. But that's what our chat is about today, embracing each season of matrescence, because some are going to feel really hard and some are going to feel really lonely and some are going to feel really confusing. So much of matrescence feels like this weird transition between who you used to be and who you are becoming, and it's a lot of in-between times, and that doesn't often feel really nice. So that's what our chat is about today, and I know you're going to love it, and I would love to hear from you after you've listened to this episode. Come and jump over on my socials at Physio Laura and let me know what season of matrescence you are in right now. I discuss in the podcast where I'm at, so stay tuned and you can hear from both Nikki and I about what season of matrescence we are in right now, but I would love to hear what season you're in, and it's a really good question and point of reflection to actually sit and think about where you're at, and you might then acknowledge that I'm in a really hard season. I often do that. Sometimes I will have a day where I think, I'm really overwhelmed, or wow, I didn't get quote unquote much done today, and then I remind myself, Laura, you are in a thick season of newborns and young children who depend on you. And then I remind myself that, it's going to feel a bit hard, and it's different challenges for different seasons, but it's really nice to acknowledge where you're at. So I'd love to hear from you. This is the final episode in this series, but we have amazing podcast series coming up. So please do subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast so you do not miss out on any of those. And if you want to connect with me more, I go and live. Most of my time is spent inside my Pregnancy Posse membership. So there are weekly specific workouts to each stage of your pregnancy. They are tailored. We have beautiful information on preparing for birth mentally, physically. We have yoga, we have meditation, we have how to deal with pelvic pain and back pain. We do Q&As, we have a wonderful community. I could go on and on, but you know what? The best way to come and find out more is to trial it for 7 days. So come and visit thepregnancyposse.com. I will chat to you when you enter the program and we can see how we can help you best. But let's jump into today's episode. And like I said, when you finish listening, come and chat with me over at Physio Laura and let me know what season of matrescence you are in. Enjoy. Let's talk about seasons of matrescence. I'm going to let you take the mic here. You have developed this amazing program around it and explain it so well. So tell us, Nikki, all about it.
Yeah, well, I guess as you can tell, I really love the seasons and cycles, and I've found them so helpful for navigating so much in my own life. And then in my work, I support mothers through matrescence, which is the developmental process that we go through when we become a mother. that initial transition to becoming a mother and motherhood, as well as the ongoing process of change and transformation that we're moving throughout the rest of our lives as mothers, because matrescence is potentially lifelong. We're always going to be transitioning and moving through different periods of our life. And that's often very connected with our child's development. So I was just talking to Laura before we started. My son's starting school. He starts prep in a week. And that has triggered, a new aspect of my own matrescence journey, my own identity as a mother, my own stories about what it means to be a good mother and a good school mom and all of that. So it's a constant, continuous journey that we're moving through. And what I found as I was working with mothers, and very much connected to, my own journey with the menstrual cycle and with the different cycles of life, was that it was actually following the same rhythm of change and transformation. So there was an autumn, a winter, a spring, and a summer. And if you think about the initial transition to becoming a mother, it can feel like things are changing, it can have that autumn energy. Things are falling away. Maybe I'm not ready for things to change. There can be an aspect of, I had this kind of expectation about what motherhood was going to be like, and those expectations are not matching up with my reality, and having to let go of what we thought it might be like and embrace what it is. So there's this aspect of the transition that is, things are changing. Maybe I'm ready for that. Maybe I'm not ready for that. And then we move into a winter season. And this can feel like you're not who you were before you became a mother, but you're not quite sure yet who you're becoming. So identity shifts and changes are one of the most common aspects of matrescence, and I think one of the most challenging and least spoken about. So this sense of, I'm changing, but I don't know who I am yet. I'm still working that out, and needing time for rest and renewal, and for letting things fall away so that new things can grow. So it's being in between. That energy of winter is very much in between. And then you come into spring, which is when you can feel a sense of new possibilities. Maybe there's a bit more light returning. You can see more opportunities. You can feel more connected to yourself. Maybe you're starting to find your feet a little bit more in your new role as a mother, as well as all of the other roles and relationships that you have in your life. And then moving into summer, which is a time of reaping the gifts of that transformation cycle. So this might be a time of, sharing our gifts with others, wanting to mentor other mothers, that maybe you meet a mum in the playground and you're like, hey, can I have a chat to you? And you want to share your journey and share your experience. And the seasons, each of those seasons has purpose and has medicine and gifts. And like we were talking about in winter, if you think about that winter season as being in between, where there might not be a lot of growth on the surface, but that seed is under the ground, sending its roots down deep. And in winter, we can almost feel like we want to dig the seed up and check it's still growing. But that's a time where we're, allowing stillness, we're allowing space so that something new can come through. And what I found is that we might cycle through that initial transition when we become a mother, but we continue following that same cycle for the rest of our lives. We might move through it again, for example, when your child goes to school. Like, I've felt myself move through those seasons again. If you have another baby, if you experience a pregnancy loss, if you experience a relationship breakdown, if you move cities, if you change jobs, we're always moving through those cycles. The rhythm of change is always the same. There's a change and a separation from the way that things were. In between, not quite who I was before, not quite sure who I'm becoming, and need for rest and reflection. And then coming out the other side with those new possibilities. And then in summer, reaping the benefits and the gifts of the transformation. And there are always many. Winter is hard. I have been through many myself, but it does often give us such deep clarity about what's important, what I want. It can really take us back to the roots of who we are, what matters, what doesn't. And I think that without that winter, if we were always just living in summer, as I have experienced myself over the last few months, like I
Like,
mentioned
bring on
before,
winter, come on.
I'm like, I'm actually really tired. I would like to experience some autumn, spring vibes are always
Yeah.
like nice, I
Yeah.
feel. So yes, it's really just again about applying that same principle of cyclicality and seasonality to our experience as mothers, knowing that we're not always going to be on. There are going to be periods of change that feel hard, and that's actually okay. That's a part of the process. And through, embracing the cycle of it and working with the season that we're in, we can actually unlock a lot of gifts.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's the
I love
season
that.
of matrescence.
I'm just thinking that the woman listening to this right now who feels that they're in the depth of winter would hopefully just be getting so much out of this, because I think there's a saying that the only certainty in life is change or something like that. But like, just reiterating what you said, in that we never stay stuck in anything. Like, we're always cycling through. So whilst you might be in, I'm thinking of the postpartum mom who's, nipples are sore and like everything is just leaking, and, she's tired and is on that emotional roller coaster of who am I? And like, what do I like? And, like really going into the depths of matrescence and feeling like winter's never going to end, but just knowing that like this is such a important part of the cycle, and then like it sucks and it probably feels really hard, but to know that there's going to be a spring and there's going to be a summer, and it just is the natural way of life. You're going to get out of that season. I think that's the beauty in this conversation, is being able to acknowledge that the hard times and the down times and the dark times are almost like equally as valuable as the up times and the shiny times and the bright times, and just really being able to honor all of them would make such a difference to women's mental health, I'm sure. Like, knowing that this is all going to pass and there will be so much beauty in this, and maybe you don't see it now, maybe you'll only see it by the time you get to summer and you look back on winter and think, I needed that. And you've, like you said, you've been there yourself, and you know now the beauty that winter does reap. The seeds that you sown, I don't know, in winter, were so beneficial, and that you needed to go through that process. So I just think that's so valuable for mothers to understand,
Yeah.
because I just think there's so many women in winter right now. There's a lot going on, and being pregnant and having a baby is such an intense initiation. And I think it would really like plummet women into certain phases of their cycle that maybe they haven't really felt before. And I just think it's so important for women to hear this and like have some, hope that like spring and summer are coming if you are feeling like you're in the depths of winter. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's amazing that you have, like been able to pull all this information together, because it's so articulate and easy to understand how you've described it now. To be able to, it's not that simple, but to be able to just say, I'm here and I know that, I'm going to be here next and here next, and just to have that understanding of the whole picture. So I love that so much. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss, or anything else you felt like mums really should understand or know about these seasons?
No, just really to echo what you just said around it leading to greater acceptance and a feeling of, a bit more of a sense of control over what's happening. Because I feel like, and I reflect back on my journey as a new mum, and I remember feeling like in that deep winter of postpartum, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel like myself again. Is this just what motherhood is? Is it always going to be like this? When are things going to get better? And just not being able to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I love about this, is it's being able to situate yourself within that broader cycle and knowing right now I'm in winter and this is what the challenges are. This is the kind of support I need. And winter, we need support. This is not something that we winter alone. We need to be wintering in community and have help. But also knowing, okay, and then next spring, okay, and I'm going to see the benefits of this growth. I went through a pregnancy loss in 2020, and this kind of landed all for me then, or landed in a deeper way for me then, because that was such a deep winter for me. And to actually acknowledge that that's what it was, and that's what that particular experience called me towards embracing, changed my experience of that pregnancy loss. I think if I had have, felt like I had to pretend it didn't happen, if I had to just keep pushing through, if I had to just try and be, being as productive as I am in my summer, when internally I was in this deep sense of grief, I don't think I would have gotten through it in the same way. I really let myself sit in that winter and to be with it and move through it. And then it could be alchemized. It could be turned into something else, rather than that grief just kind of sitting with me in a ball, pushed down and tucked away. And I think it's the same for us, whether it's a relationship breakdown, the initial transition to motherhood, whatever it is that's going on in your life that brings you into that deep winter, being able to accept that that's where you're at right now, so that you can get support, whatever that looks like for you, a friend, a women's circle, I highly recommend, a therapist, whatever it might be, so that you can work with the lessons of winter, so that you get the gifts in spring and summer. So it's just about, I guess, working with reality, really, with what's going on in your own life, rather than kind of always pushing through to get to that summer.
Yes. Yeah. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. When you mentioned about winter, as in you'd sowed a seed and you almost feel like you want to dig down to check it's still there. And I was thinking about, yes, that's so true, that in our life, we want to just double check, like we don't have that trust. And I was thinking about my veggie patch again. But I don't doubt that any of the seeds I plant will sprout into seedlings. Like I don't actually, in my veggie patch, go and double check that they're actually growing. I just wait till they come to the surface and then they grow. And I have such trust in Mother Nature in that regard. And I feel like if we brought that same level of trust to ourselves and where we're at in life, and trusting that this is exactly where we need to be, and we're learning the lessons that we need to know right now, and that this is putting us on the path that we need to be on, and everything's for a reason. I feel like we just have so much more trust in ourselves and our lives, and everyone would be so much more regulated. And I think we resist. You also mentioned with winter, because obviously I think winter is the hard one for women to lean into, or for everyone to lean into. But you mentioned the in between, and I thought about, like, even myself, like I know this stuff, but I still find myself resisting that in between. You just want to get there, wherever there is. But just being in that in between transitional period. I know this is why so many women find it really hard to go through motherhood and matrescence, because it is a lot of in between, and just embracing the in between and being like, you know what, I don't even know who I am right now. And that's cool. Like I'm going to find it, or I have no idea what I want out of my life right now. And that's cool. And, just like, I imagine if so many more women were able to accept that, it would just be so much more harmonious. Women would struggle so much less, and it would be really beautiful. So I really hope women, have that peace after listening to this, that like just accepting where you are doesn't mean you accept it as it is. Like you said, it might mean that you actually need to really initiate. I need more support. I need more community. It's not just accepting this is hard and I have to suffer. Not at all. I just mean accepting, oh, okay, this is the cycle I'm in, and I need to accept that, and then, cultivate more support if I need it and whatnot. But yeah, so beautiful. I want to finish off with where we're each at in our cycles, so that the listeners can go away and maybe reflect on where they're at. And I know you mentioned it before, but in case anyone missed it, whereabouts do you feel you're at with your cycle?
Yeah, so menstrual cycle, I'm in early spring. Seasonal outside, it's like summer, although we're starting to descend into winter, autumn. And life-wise, seasons of matrescence wise, I've been in a really prolific summer. I feel like there's been so much going on. And I was talking to you about it before, work-wise, my work's been going really amazing, and it's been growing, and it's been so good. My son's starting prep, and that's really exciting, and he's growing. And there's just been a lot though going on. Like, it's been so busy. And I think combined with summer outside, summer inside, it's been really, really busy. And I'm actually very welcoming of autumn and winter and coming into that. And I've actually been thinking about this recently, just because I actually find autumn and winter and the darker aspects of the cycle easier to manage sometimes than the summer.
Yeah.
And just noticing how funny that is, like I think I can actually struggle when things are going so well and everything's so busy, and just
Yeah.
noticing that about myself as well. And this is again, the beauty of tracking the cycles and following these different seasons within ourselves, in our own bodies, in our own hearts, as well as the outside world, because you learn so much about yourself. Like, I never knew that about myself. I'm like, wow, isn't that interesting? I really struggle when things are going well. Who would have thought? So yeah, I guess it's been really a really fascinating time for me just to look at how that's kind of manifesting in my life. And yeah, I'd love to know what seasons and
Yes.
cycles you're into. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting food for thought when I was thinking about it before the podcast. However, I'm going to tennis back to you for 1 second. I'm curious to know, do you, like, so you've acknowledged you've been in this big hectic summer period. Do you then just naturally feel called to transition into autumn, or do you feel like you have to, really start to like plan for it? Like, do you, mindfully say start removing things off your calendar and, like taking the pedal off, or do you find it just kind of organically happens that way?
I think this time I'm doing it quite consciously, because I do want to have a baby soon. So I'm like, I'm in my summer right now, and I'm almost like, okay, Nikki, get as much stuff as you can get done as possible,
Yeah.
because I know that when I do fall pregnant, then things will start slowing down. So for me right now, that is intentional, and I am kind of planning it because I'm working with that energy. But there's been other times where, something happens, like, for example, the pregnancy loss, where I was not at all planning for that. And that was like something happened and it dipped me straight in. So I think that there's different ways to work with it depending on what's going on in your life. But whether you intentionally choose to slow down, or slowing down chooses you,
Mm.
the kind of support that we need, the kind of tools that we're working with in that winter season, which, as you said, is often, the most difficult. I think they're the same, regardless of how you find yourself there. And for me, the community aspect of winter is really, really important. Yeah.
Mm.
Having that support around you of people who can be with you when you are in between, and be okay with that, and having people who are also in between, and who are also exploring, and as you said, it can actually be quite an adventure if you're approaching it with that kind of mindset. It was like, oh, actually, I don't know what I like anymore. And I've had periods like that where I'm like, I don't actually know what I enjoy. And it can be, an adventure then to reconnect with yourself and to try different things, as long as we're kind of doing it, as you said, with community and with intention and with support, and with that sense of excitement sometimes that,
Mm.
that can be amazing to be in a winter, because you don't know what's going to pop up out of the ground. It could be like a beautiful flower, could be a tree, like it just
Could be a weed, who knows?
But there is so much, yeah, I guess it's such fertile ground, and there's so much potential at that stage. And that's what I see in that winter, is like, oh, this is exciting,
Mm.
because you're going to be someone different on the other end of
Yeah.
this.
It's that curiosity, which I think is so important. That's epic. I love
Mm.
that. And just to round up, I am in summer, in
Mhm.
outside the world where I live right now, summer. And in terms of motherhood cycles, I feel like I'm in a real spring phase,
Mhm.
almost towards summer. So I felt like I was in a really beautiful winter once Luca was born. Big supportive community around me, like the best I've ever rested in my whole entire life. It felt so good. I was taking things as slow as I've ever taken them. And it wasn't depressing or dark or anything like that. It was just a real hibernation, restful winter. And then I didn't do any work, and I just like totally like lent into motherhood role, which is the first time I've properly done that. It was the most epic winter I've ever had.
Mhm.
And then I definitely feel like I'm emerging into this spring where I'm starting to feel that creative juice is flowing. Like I'm wanting to step back into my business more. I'm feeling much more social and outgoing and, wanting to be around and like have play dates and catch ups and move my body in a different way as well. That was interesting. So yeah, in winter, like it was, in that recovery period, I didn't want to do anything except walk. Like that was kind of the max. Whereas now I'm finding myself like wanting to do higher energy sports and activities and things like that. And I wouldn't say I'm in summer yet, just because I feel like I'm close to it though. I can feel myself wanting to tip over into like full blown high vibe, like let's do all the things. But also still like really just wanting to nurture this newborn period. I don't know if this is my last baby, and I think I'm holding on to like not wanting that period to end. So I'm probably resistant to head into summer because it feels like the end of a real period. So that's where I feel like I'm at. And in terms of the moon, I have absolutely no idea what the moon is up to. Do you know where the moon's at right now?
Yeah, it's a new moon tomorrow. So there you go.
And what does that mean again, to remind everyone? What does
So
the moon
that
symbolize?
corresponds with like winter, the menstrual cycle, the seed underneath the ground. So yeah, very much like new possibilities, the start of a new cycle, birth of something new, which is exciting. Yeah, and I loved your reflection around how the movement that your body craved was different. I think that's just such a beautiful example of being attuned to what our body wants and not pushing it, because it would be so easy to be just like, no, I do high intensity exercise, and that's what I should be doing. Whereas, listening to our bodies and really connecting in that way, I think is just really beautiful.
Absolutely. And even from a hormonal point of view, as a women's health physio, often premenstrual is when a lot of women will have incontinence or prolapse symptoms because of the way the hormones work. And so naturally, because of their hormones, we would encourage them to not do high intensity running, HIIT classes, things like that, because it would make their prolapse or incontinence symptoms worse. And they knew that they were great during their ovulatory phase. They could run 10K and do all these things. But then when they dip into that autumn winter phase, they would notice they couldn't do that without pelvic floor symptoms. So, it all ties in together that, like our body in that example is telling us like, don't do the high impact right now. You need to take it slow. And women would then adjust their exercise routines. They would say, this is the week that I do walks, swims, yoga, Pilates, whatever it is, but just take it down a little notch, and knowing that I get to do the other stuff on the other weeks and I will feel better for it. So again, just leaning in and out as we need to. Oh, this conversation is so epic, Nikki. I said this last time, but I just feel like I could talk to you for, maybe I need to come up to the Queensland and, have a circle with you and just finish off.
Yeah, I'd love that. And I agree, like I could talk to you all day. So I suppose at some point we should probably stop.
Yeah, we should. So thank you so much. I know the women listening to this are going to get so much out of it. And I just remember when it hit me, and I just feel like women listening to this will probably the first time they've ever heard of it. And I truly think it will change your life. Like I think knowing this is so transformative, and generations beyond us are going to be influenced by conversations like these. So thank you so much. You are a legend.
So are you. Thank you.
Hello, mamas. I hope you loved that episode. I hope you've got a really good understanding now of the seasons of matrescence, what they mean, how important it is to acknowledge where you're at. And I would love to know where you are at right now. So as I shared in the episode, I am on the borderline of a spring/summer. So I went through that winter hibernation, resting, postpartum period where I moved slow. I didn't do a lot. I rested. I wasn't very social. I just really went inwards, and it was beautiful. And that was the first time in my adult life that I've truly rested like that. And then I've emerged from it and I've got more energy and I've got more creativity and I want to be social and I want to go do all these things with my business and I want to go and do all these things with my kids and my husband and, be out and about. And I needed to go through that winter period to really be able to embrace this period. I think if I had skipped over winter, I hadn't rested postpartum, I don't think I'd be enjoying this spring, summer as much because I'd probably be a bit depleted. I probably wouldn't have as much energy for it. So I'm really loving this mental space of understanding what season I'm in. And right now it feels really good. And I know that I'll eventually dip back into an autumn or a winter and it might be hard and sad or dark and challenging and I might feel lethargic and a bit unmotivated, but that's okay. That's all part of it. So I'd love to hear from you over at Physio Laura. Let me know what season you're in right now and maybe how you're feeling about being in that season. And if you want to connect with Nikki, the wonderful Nikki, she is over at Nikki McCann. She has amazing offerings and teacher trainings and all sorts of things to do with matrescence and motherhood. Definitely go check her out. She is incredible. Thank you so much for being here. I hope wherever you are today, you're having a wonderful day. And again, subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast because next week we will be bringing out a new series and I don't want you to miss out. So much love to you all and I will see you soon.